I really feel that learning about the timing, the correct timing of first fruits, is the key to learning the timing of our redemption. Now, Exodus 23:19 says, "The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of the Lord thy God." And that's what we're looking at, coming home to Lord thy God. Now, also Revelation 14:4 says, "These are they who follow the Lamb wherever he may go. They were purchased from among men as firstfruits to God and to the Lamb." Now Leviticus 23:17 says, "Ye shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 tenths deal. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven, and they are the firstfruits unto the Lord." Leviticus 23:10 then says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye come into the land which I have given you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the firstfruits of the harvest unto the priest." And then following that with verse 11, it says, "And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it." And so, isn't that appropriate that the priest shall wave it? Uh, and who is the high priest that should be waving us, the redeemed, as first fruits? It should be Yahushua, the high priest. Now, in Hebrews 6:20, it actually says, "Indeed, Yahushua, having become high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek." I don't know if I pronounced that right, but yes, he is our high priest. But again, we're looking for the date of which he'd be waving the first fruits. Referring back to Leviticus 23:11, it does say, "On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it." We got to find out what the morrow after the Sabbath is talking about. And so if we look at the Hebrew definition for morrow, we are looking at it meaning the morrow, the day after. So now we got to look at what the definition for a day equals. And if we look at that, we see a day as being a 24-hour period. So it is a full day, 24-hour period after the Sabbath that the priest shall wave it. Now we got to find out what the Sabbath is that they are talking about. If we turn to John 19:31, we find out what Sabbath is being talked about, as it says, "The Jews therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was a high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away." So the Sabbath day that Leviticus 23:11 is talking about is this high day Sabbath. Day happens to be the same day that Leviticus 23:6 and 7 say, "And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. And the first day ye shall have a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein." And that is the actual day of the high day that John 19:31 is talking about. This was the day of Nisan 14 that Yahushua was crucified on the Passover. So the 15th of Nisan was the day that they were calling the high day, the day after. So again, to get to the correct day of first fruits, we have to go from the morrow after the high Sabbath, which again would be 24 hours after the high Sabbath. The high Sabbath would be on 15 Nisan. 24 hours later would be on 16 Nisan. And thus, the Feast of First Fruit, and when Yahushua's first fruits should be waved, would be on 17 Nisan. One of the things in putting this whole study together that I definitely want to iterate is the fact that Yahushua rose from the grave on 17 Nisan. That would have been 3 nights and 3 days after the 14th of Nisan. And as I had found out before in a different study, the day that he was crucified was a Wednesday, and the day that he would have rose on the 17th would have been a Sabbath day. Just thought I'd add that. Now, also important to note is the fact that Yahushua became first one to rise from the dead, and in a manner in which he could be considered a first fruit himself in doing so. So it's kind of neat that likewise on maybe 17 Nisan, his redeemed could be rising to heaven as first fruits. Now, how I like to wrap things up on this study is by next just looking back at a study briefly that I did on the days of Noah, and in particularly this thought that matched with the 17th day of Nisan, when Jubilees 5:23 was saying, and he entered in the 6th year thereof, in the 2nd month on the new moon, which I showed in that study that new moon just meant first day of the 2nd month, which would also be the Hebrew calendar observance of the 17th day of Nisan. And I have pointed out that, again, that was when Yahushua rose from the grave. I want to go to the book of Joshua next, and it's kind of neat because actually the book of Joshua very well could be the real name Yahushua, because their names are very similar, if not the same. So going to Joshua 4, we read in Joshua 4, I guess it's 4:19, where it says, the people came out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and camped in Gilgal, the east border of Jericho. The 10th day of the month of Nisan is the day that we're talking about. And that would be the day in which one's entered the promised land officially. This would also be the day in which officially the 10th of Nisan that Yahushua would have riding into Jerusalem prior to his crucifixion. Turning to Joshua 5, 11 and 12, it reads, and they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. And the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land. Neither had the children of Israel manna any more, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. So the 17th day of Nisan would have been the day in which ones of the Exodus indeed took their sheaf of the fruits of the harvest unto the priest and did eat of the land. So this was the first time in the promised land that the first fruits were eaten. And likewise, we are going to a promised land, a place that Yahushua said that he was going to prepare for us. And if he went to prepare this place, that we would also be. And the place that I believe that he has prepared for us is this place that Enoch 70 talks about, where in 74 it says, "And there I saw the first fathers and the righteous, who from the beginning dwell in that place." So yes, we are going home as his first fruits to what I believe will be Enoch's planet, what we've been calling Enoch's planet, and EP, very soon. And I do believe that it very well could be on 17th day of Nisan. Now, I've also done another study where I was led also to the 17th day of Nisan. What that study showed was it was not only the day that Yahushua rose from the grave, but it was the day in which Noah and his family was brought into the ark. Particularly, it says in the book of Jubilees 5:23, "And he entered in the 6th year thereof, in the 2nd month, on the new moon meaning new day of the month, of the 2nd month, which would be on the Hebrew calendar, the observance of the 17th day of Nisan." And that is the equivalent of April 13th of this year, 2017. Will it be? Only Father knows. All I know is that it seems like many things lead to that date and or around that date. As always, we will see, and it's all in Father's hands. It's been a pleasure doing this study. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it.